Hey everyone, Sappo here. We're looking at Cubase today, Cubase 12 Pro, and how to create rolling liquid drum and bass within Cubase. So this series is brand new. We're going to do 4 parts. Part 1 is going to be drum construction and layering, how to get a great fat sound within Cubase using stock instruments, stock plugins, and all the tools within Cubase. So part 2 will be bass, obviously, because it's drums and bass. And we're going to show you how you can craft a really warm, fat analog bass sound. Much like the samplers here, I think Sample Track can replicate what these samplers that I use every day. It's got the same vibe, it's got the same sort of tool set as well. That's really cool. Part 3, vocal chains and spectral layers, how you can craft a really big vocal chain that will work and cut through the mix and sound quite epic. Part 4, mixing and mastering, that's what I do, mixing and mastering. So we're going to delve into how you can get a really big sound within the box for all the latest streaming platforms, festivals if you're doing that, in the club, how you can really get a big sound using just Cubase's own VSTs. So we're going to show you how you can do all that. Watch this series. This is the part 1. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's the track and let's have a quick listen. So you get the idea, it's rolling, it's a kind of liquid vibe. Quite like it. I've heard it a million times recently, but yeah, there's a track. And let's go back into how we've done it. So we've got the drum kit. Let's solo the drum kit. This is a REVerence drum kit, and we're going to go to our file browser and we're going to have our samples there. Okay, so starting with the drums, the main drums is, let's zoom in a bit, is this REVerence drum. So the main beat is from REVerence. Absolutely love REVerence for beats. It's kind of like a hardware drum machine sampler, and there's a few out there now, and this is, for me personally, this is what really replicates that in software. So I draw for it all the time for my drums, and I'll show you some really cool tricks in a second. Okay, so populated the kit with some samples. So kick, snare, hi-hat, and there's a clap as well there. So the really cool thing about REVerence, I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos, is the layering power. It is amazing. So let's reset some of these pads and show you what I did. So I'm going to reset that, I'm probably going to reset that, and I'm probably going to reset that. Just to show you a quick example. So this kick is made of 2 kicks, and there's different types of modes within REVerence which will dictate how your samples are played back. So there's velocity, layer, round robin, random, exclusive, and random. We're only going to deal with layer, but I will also show you what velocity does as well. So if I click velocity, that means that these 2 samples that I've laid on this pad, the lower down the velocity is which sample will play first. So lower, higher, lower, higher. So this isn't relevant for this drum kit and this beat that I'm working on, but for instance, you might want to have 50 rolls, you know, you might want 50 rolls and do a crescendo, and this is what it'd be really cool for doing that. Sound design kits, vocal chops, there's millions of options. It's only limited by your creativity how you want to go with that. So for drums, it's amazing. So I've got 2 kicks together. I'm going to put them on layer mode, and that means that I can get them stacked together and get a really solid kick, should I say, in the kick. A really solid kick within the kit. And so now obviously I can, you know, I can zoom out and have a look at the sample or zoom in, and then I can get to see what I want to use. I can top and tail and trim it, all that kind of stuff per sample, and I can stack it as many times as I want. And also, which is really good, is that I have effects within Groove Agent SE, and of course I have full control over pitch, ADSR, fine tuning, and the filters. So I've added a tube drive, and this will just give it that little bit of extra warmth if I turn it off. You can see now it's a bit more, a lot of the highs coming through, but we kind of want it to be a bit more warmer because there's going to be loads of harmonics from the highs and drum beats and all the extra stuff coming later on. We kind of want this kit to be quite dark sounding, but quite fat and quite mid-rangey, and that's what the tube drive will do. It'll just take off some of them highs and give us a more of a warmer kick. So it's a solid warm kick, and that's great. And to do that, it was really simple. I got my kicks from Media Bay, so there's a snare, hi-hat, there's a kick, there's my other kick, and it was just a case of simply dragging it to the pads. You'll get 3 dialogues, you get a plus, arrow to the right, and 3 solid blocks. So what the 3 solid blocks will mean is if you have a stack of kicks and you drag them to the pads, they'll be mapped up chromatically all the way up the keyboards. It's great for, say for instance, if you're doing the aiming break. A lot of people like to do loads of wild edits with the aiming break, and it's amazing for that. So you might want to get 50 aiming chops and just drag and drop them in, and it will populate them all the way up the keys, 88 keys if it needs to be, depending on how much you've chopped it by, and it's great for that kind of choppage sound, really cool. The second one is to the right, which means that it's going to replace the sample that's currently on the pad with the one I'm dragging it across, and then obviously the plus sign is adding to the pad. So if I drag it to the pad there, and then I draw for the next kick, that for instance, and then I go to the plus sign, and there it is, 2 samples on 1 pad, really easy. And of course, 16 pads, I can populate that kit and create my own custom drum and bass kit of all layered samples. And you know, people say, oh, layering, you can layer too much and stuff, but most music uses layering. You know, even sound design, film stuff uses layering. You'll probably hear a piano with a string together to create a sort of, a cinematic kind of tension. So drums, everything can be layered, basses especially. So you can layer as much as you want. Obviously use your ears, you can go too wild with it, but I think for layering kicks and snares and percussion and creating a drum kit, Groove Agent's the one, and what it does there is so quick and easy. I don't think anything else does that, and it's a godsend to me that, coming from a drum machine background, you know, the MPCs and all that kind of stuff, this is perfect for me. So there you go. So within Groove Agent, I have this drum kit rolling. Here's the pattern again. So coming to the snare, again, we've dropped it, dragged and dropped it. We've layered 2 snares. We've got the hard clip on now, so the hard clip will literally drive it a little bit more. So let's turn it off. That's without it, it's quite light. Turn it on, hard clip, cuts through a bit more. Added the distortion, it's about 15%. So 15% will how much you're going to clip it by into this sound. So how much you're going to drive it by, how much you're going to cut through. Great. Hi-hat, I've got 2 hi-hats. Of course, you can use many different types of hi-hats and many combinations and many stacks, but I think 2 kind of works. 2 kind of sort of bouncing off each other to make a sort of wider hat. You might want one with more of a high end. You might want one with more highs and more with more mids, and you want to stack them together to just create your own signature hi-hat, and it all adds up to being your signature kit. So this one here, we have vintage mode, which is great. So vintage mode is replicating this, my baby here, the 950. It creates that kind of sound, so you get the 8, the 12, 16-bit kind of sample. It's sample depth, and I like that, you know, and it's got that warmness. And sometimes you might want that on a hi-hat because you don't want it too digital, you don't want it too clinical. Even though it might have the clarity, you can warm that down a bit and make it a bit lo-fi. It really will fit in a mix. And so standard mode will do nothing. Vintage mode then and turntable mode will give you that lo-fi kind of sound. Great on hi-hats. So let's listen to without it. Standard, and then we've got vintage, and then we've got turntable. And you can hear it getting lower, the bit rates, and getting crustier and warmer, and we like that drum and bass especially. So got it in vintage mode, and then we have the tube mode, we've got it in classic mode, and then it can be dictated by the cutoff as well. So, and we can just turn it up to darken it. Sorry, we can turn it up to lighten it, sorry. And just choose, dictate it to taste, and that's our kind of kit. And then, you know, you can save that then as a custom preset, and it's your own custom demo kit ready to roll. And GrooveAgent goes much deeper than this, which we can show you in another video. Or like I say, if you want to go to my older videos, I've gone into a bit more deeper things that you can do within GrooveAgent. So here's our beat again. Right, cool. So GrooveAgent has two modes, pattern mode, instrument mode. In pattern mode, which is great, we actually get to create our own pattern and manipulate it, which is this is what I absolutely love GrooveAgent for. So here's my key editor and the MIDI editor. Let's zoom in and see the pattern. It's a really simple two-step kick-step pattern, kicks and snares layered and stuff like that. Great. So the cool thing about GrooveAgent is I can say, okay, there's my two-step groove, really simple. I can choose to then drag it to the pattern mode pad. So I'm in pattern mode now, and the power of that is amazing, that I can have 16 different patterns on this pattern mode section. So I have the instrument mode, which has the samples. I have the pattern mode, which has the actual grooves, the MIDI grooves. So I can drag that in. I can then choose to maybe change some things in there, delete it, drag it back to the pad, where the dialogues become important again with the arrow to the right. I can swap it. So I can actually keep swapping and changing and creating custom grooves. So I'm just going to undo that to go back to what I did. So what I've done here is, with drum bass, obviously we have drum rolls and stuff, so I've created drum rolls. So it's great for getting ideas down for drum rolls. So you can actually work out, you know, back in the days you were drawing the tool and stuff like that, and it was not quite good enough, and then we're doing it again and then doing it again and getting all these drum rolls and spending maybe a day just trying to work out the drop into the drum rolls or build up epic transitions. Now with this pattern mode is great. We can actually just create them in, draw them in, drag them to the pads. There's our drum roll, and again and again and again. So these are the drum rolls that I made. I like that one. It's a straight one, and this one's getting a bit more faster. And then obviously we get our 32s straight in there, and then of course we get the big one. So, and that's how I like that one. So it actually became into this track as well. It actually became part of this, as you can hear now here. And if I click on there, you can see the drum roll. So there's a drum roll, and there's a second part of the drum roll. So again, GrooveAgent opened up. I literally just created this drum roll in MIDI, and then I just literally just dragged it to the pad, and you can keep going. You can have many different varieties. Obviously, drum rolls can last for ages for epic transitions and build up real, you know, a real vibe. It's up to you, you know. I think that's just really powerful, the fact we have two options there, and we can build up loads of creativity. So these are the rolls that I've drawn in. You know, I used the tool, and then I did the line tool. Really easy. If you want to know more about that, again, other video. This one's just concentrating on the beats actually more than anything, but I just wanted to show you this, how you can use this creatively, especially in drum and bass and jungle, to get that kind of the drum rolls, which every track more or less has that in the drop and intros, and we love that. We absolutely love that. So another cool thing, finally on GrooveAgent, is the fact that if I have the pattern, which is this, sorry, this is that if I have the pattern this, which is my basic pattern, we also have different options to change the tempo. So this is great. So I can double it up like this. Amazing, by bar, by beat, whatever I choose, you know, and we can even add swing to that. Again, another video, but amazing. But what's good about this is I can say, okay, give me half tempo. And then it's just obviously half of 175, which is the tempo. Amazing for doing like hip hop kind of breakdowns and stuff. And I did that. So on the first pad, and now I've created a transition between fast rolls and a breakdown. And this is what I did. So that's just an idea. Obviously, different breaks, different sounds, different elements. Wow, you can get some really, really cool creative stuff going on. So yeah, that's what to show you that quickly. And that's the drum break. Second one, we had the break layer. This is a break layer just to fatten out that initial kit. And you'll understand why. You'll understand why that kit was a bit darker sounding. And if you notice, there wasn't really any reverb on there. And if I show you the chain for that, you'll see literally there's like a vintage compressor on there. We've got the punch mode on, ratio, fast attack, slower release, so we get the transients. We have a maximizer with soft clip mode on to warm things up and just really pick up all the peaks. Multi-band envelope shaper, which is amazing for pushing out all the transients. We're going to show that later on in the series. And then we have the frequency EQ just to clean a couple of things up. Some of the low off, because obviously the bass is going to go there and we don't want to get messy in that region. And also a little bit of pop there at 5k just to get the snare cutting through the top end of the snare. And that's it really. So the break layer, let's listen to before and after. Let me close these windows down. So here's the break layer on its own in isolation. So it's a wicked break off a pack. That I love that break. What we're going to do is show you how I've processed that. So without all the plug-in chain, so that's how it sounds. Some rejigging around programming wise, and then it's ready to process. So what I've done is I've added lots of processing just to make it fatter and make it bigger, make it actually fit the drum kit of Groove Agent. And all we've added is frequency EQ, some cleanups and stuff like that. Razor, which is one of our latest limiting plugins, which is it's quite aggressive. We like that in drum and bass and jungle. We can actually drive things amazing for break beats and stuff like that. You can actually turn the gain up, and then we can actually drive the transients, and you can see it as it's playing. And you can see what it's doing. It's controlling it as well as you turning it up, so you can actually drive through this limiter to get a really fat sound. It can be used for many other things as well, but for breaks I find, and drum buses and layered breaks, it's perfect. Finally, it's going into distortion, which is great. It's been in there for a long time, this distortion. You know, the boost mode is how much you distort it by. There's a tone. Oversampling is off. And we have the mix knob, which I love in a lot of our plugins at the moment, because we don't have to do an effects end. Although it's really easy to do an effects end, really quick. The fact that we have a mix knob there, we can do parallel processing with one knob, done. It really is really cool. So going into REVerence, love this plugin. We have many reverb plugins. This is the only one that we have that's like this convolution wise, where you can actually import genuine, realistic impulse responses. So for instance, a cathedral, a studio drum room, a hall, you know, some footsteps. It doesn't matter, it can be brought into here. It's amazing. It's REVerence, and it's got so much stuff in there preset wise, and impulses as well. So it's great for adding plate, so like a sort of plate ambient room verb. And this is why Groove Agent didn't have any reverb on there, because this layer, this break layer with the plate on there, adds the reverb what's needed. So you don't want every single break to have reverb, it's not needed. So let's have a listen. And that adds the level of reverb that I need in space in there. So yeah, in Cubase, I think you should have a look at this. I love this reverb. Obviously, we have loads as well, like Revelation and Roomworks and stuff like that. But for drums, I absolutely love REVerence. Bit of the space is up to by 6-7%. We have the mix knob by 20%, and the slight tail's been taken off a bit. And that's it really. We have the auto gain on. It sounds great. So the next one in the chain is the Bongos. This is from my pack that I did, sound design pack, and I've made it myself, but I've also processed it and put it back in Cubase and processed it again from Cubase. So here's how it sounds in isolation. Without our chain. And then with the processing. So let's have a look. Frequency EQ. Again, some roll-offs. All we're doing is with the rolling offs, we're taking off unnecessary low end, unnecessary energy, which will declutter the mix, which will give you a better pre-master, a better master, you know, eventually. So when you're rolling off, we always say cut, not boost, because what that will give you is a great mix down, eventual pre-master, and eventual master, and which we will be covering later on in the series. So go and get into our stereo enhancer. This is great. So this adds a nice bit of width, delay, the width amount, and the color is what you should be looking at. I'm looking here at the width amount, it's 170%, so it's quite wide. And then the color is how much of the difference is between the stereo width you're getting between that. And let's have a listen. Without, and without. So it's really great what you can get with it, and you can collapse it to mono as well. We can collapse it to mono. So you can get some really big spatial effects with it. It's great for percussion, because percussion's needed to do that. Percussion and drum beats, they're never really central. You know, a real natural drum kit will be kick, snare, hi-hat, all kind of panned in different directions, from left to right. So this is what will help you get more natural sounding kind of percussion in your mixes as well. Not just for drum bass, for most music in general. And of course you can dictate how much you do that by. Collapsing to mono is a great one for checking if there's phase issues, for instance. And it's great for, in a mixing and mastering scenario, you might want to check if mono, like I have on this desk here, I have the mono button, I'll check it on the desk and I'll just go, right, and make sure the image doesn't collapse too much. Obviously it will collapse because there'll be stereo imaging going on and FX and stuff, but you don't want it to go like that on one side to the right. Then you know there's some sort of phase issues, or there's some sort of like flanging, and then you know what's wrong. But when you press mono, it should just get the image central, and that's it really. It shouldn't be any really issues. So you'll find if you use a lot of panning effects and swirly effects and reverbs and delays all together, you can get into some unruly problems, and collapsing to mono is a really good safety measure. Okay, so dual filters on. That's us doing some automation slide, which you can see here, really simple. There's a little automation into the drop. Let me close this window. There, a little automation down. And then we have the maximizer, again, to boost things up again. Onto our sheen and percussion. So most jungle and drum bass, we have breaks in there just to add to that energy and sheen and, you know, speed things up and pick things up. And so I have the hot break in here, and it's, you know, you pull another break, of course. But it's reprogrammed. So what I've done with the break is I've used sampler track. So if I go to sampler track here, and you can see what I've done, and I drop it into the sampler track, and you can see there, this is really great feature in sampler track for slicing and rearranging breaks. So the thing about sampler track is it's got so many features. You can do breaks, you can do bass, we're going to show that later on. You can chop up absolutely anything, you can do glide, you can do 808s, pitching, all sorts of stuff. So for breaks, it's great. So to get that break rolling and get it coming in later on, I wanted to rearrange it into a sort of groove that fitted the bongos, that fitted the break layer, that fitted the groove agent kit. And so simple drag and drop into sample track, go to slice mode, turn on slice mode, and there is every single slice. And there is our break sliced up. It's as simple as dragging it into the project, into Cubase, double click on it, there's our groove, ready to be mapped and rearranged, and that's what I did here. A few little edits and rearranged it around, and it's good to go. So sample track is great for that. Let's mute that track and listen to it again in isolation. Great, so what I've done here is, I can hear, is a lot of rolling offs going on. I mean, there's a lot. So I like to use the two EQs together, not all the time. Channel EQ and frequency EQ. The signal path is this, and it can be changed in Cubase. So it's like inserts into the channel strip, EQ, your sends, fader, and then post fader out. So it kind of works the two EQs together. It's not a given to use them all the time, but I just think that I have that security from having just rolling off any, you know, especially with breaks, you get that kind of low end rumble. It's always sneaking in there, and I like to just make sure it's totally cut off. So using our filters here, you know, I have a low cut filter frequency, and I have in frequency EQ, which I absolutely love, 48, and a real cut up to about 100. So I mean, it's great because you can do 96, you can do real, you can cut up and boost at really extreme values on here. So it's great for that, and that's what it gives me. So now I have the break there layered, and that's what it gives me. So now I have the break ready to roll, mixed and EQ'd to fit with the rest of the elements. And let's have a listen to them all together. So you can see how they all fit together, and that's your layering. So that's the layering going on. We've used Groove Agent, we've used the tools within Groove Agent, the layering, break layer to fatten it out with a plate reverb to give it some space. And then we've got the bongo, percussion, and that's kind of our breaks. And then it's supplemented now with some shakers and some tambourines and some little bongo elements, and they're just literally just filling the gaps in between. And just to quickly show you what they are, frequency EQ again, and we have a beat verb. So the beat verb is a send that I've created. So I've created a beat verb send, which will be REVerence and which will be REVerence together. And I won't use it on everything. I'll just use it on the little things like the little bongo elements and the little bits of percussion like the hi-hat and the tambourines, just to give it a little bit more extra space in the mix. And that's it really. And that's kind of my breaks. So there you go. That was part one. Hopefully you got some really cool ideas on how Groove Agent works and how you can use it for great things like drum rolls and stuff, and some tips and tricks that I tucked away in there as well. Part two, we're looking at bass and melodies. So sample track, we're gonna show you how you can get this hardware sound in Cubase using sample track and the plugins. So until next time, peace.